live from the production room here in Ithaca, New York. It's Between the 20s with me, Max Raymond, and I'm pre-recording this show because I've got a special guest with me, one great Mr. Jonathan Falco. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, the debut here on Between the 20s, but listening every so often. I remember listening to you guys last year. You and Parker Hollandone were going at it, so it feels like it's been overdue since I've been on this show. So I'm grateful to be on with. I'm very excited. Lots been happening in the world of football. So
a lot's been going on indeed, Mr. Falco, and we're going to get into a little bit of a mock draft, but before that, we're going to talk about what's been going on at first for the New Yorkers out there. We're going to open with the Bills going and getting a wide receiver. About time they did, trading a second-round pick for DJ Moore and a fifth from the Bears. Jonathan, your initial reactions after seeing that?
I love it. Bills fans hate it because it's not what they want. Because Bills fans, they always just like to complain because they hate Brandon Beane. I mean, listen, like for the most part, rightfully so. But when he actually makes a good move and lands a quality wide receiver, okay, listen, if you look at the numbers last year, he didn't have the craziest of years, even though he played all 17 games. But the potential is there. The improvement from Stefon Diggs, remember when the Bills traded for Stefon Diggs in 2020? His improvement was up by 400 yards from Minnesota to Buffalo that next year because of Josh Allen and how good Josh Allen is. And like this, in all of Josh Allen's career, this is the second best wide receiver he's ever had as a wide receiver one, which is absolutely insane. So I like the move. You can argue, okay, maybe it's a little pricey for a guy like DJ Moore. He's 29, but you have him locked in for I think 3 years. I could be wrong on that, but initially I like the move. The Bills finally get their wide receiver, and it's before the draft.
I absolutely agree with you, Jonathan, and I think that we also need to take into consideration something really important, and that is that his numbers were down last year, but he was also in one of the most highly filled and vibrant offense in the league, with Odunze also in that offense, with Loveland and Kmet, with the running backs that they wanted to get into action. And, of course, Caleb Williams, he liked to run too. And Luther Burden, who they also brought in. There's just so many guys. Olamide Zaccheaus was getting some reps too. So there were so many just mouths to feed that I think that it also needs to be taken into consideration when you see that this trade happens. Also, only a second for DJ Moore and a fifth that you got back. That sounds like a pretty nice trade.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not necessarily, okay, listen, if I really get too nitpicky with it, I think a second-round pick is maybe one round too high. Maybe a third and a fifth. A third would have been a little better. But I think regardless, when the Bills are so desperate for wide receiver one, and mind you, Brandon Beane's job is probably on the line because of the mediocrity. Well, not mediocrity, but like the expectations for the Buffalo Bills have been Lombardi after Lombardi after Lombardi. I feel like every single year that's where they've been for these past few years, ever since Josh Allen became an elite quarterback. But now it's like, okay, you got to make some sort of move that can put you over the top, and maybe DJ Moore's the start of that. And remember, like, the second round pick might even go to waste anyways, even if they did keep it. Because last time the Bills drafted the wide receiver in the second round, it was Keon Coleman. So I'm not sure if you should be trusting Brandon Beane with drafting in the second round anyway.
Well,
so maybe it's a good move.
Let's not forget, they traded back with the Chiefs, and then they traded out of the first round with the Panthers just to take Keon Coleman. They missed out on
Xavier
Worthy,
yep.
Pearsall, and Xavier Legette.
Yeah. I mean, really, obviously the biggest miss is Xavier Worthy, but the irony of that is the Chiefs went on and got Xavier Worthy at 32. So, or whatever pick they had.
Yeah, they traded up with Buffalo.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they traded up with Buffalo. So, yes, you're absolutely right there. My apologies. But, yeah, Xavier Worthy has turned out to be pretty solid for Kansas City. But, I mean, now you bring in DJ Moore. He's got good hands, and maybe he can mentor a guy to the guys like Khalil Shakir, who I think is a pretty solid wide receiver too, if need be. If you want to have some faith in Keon Coleman at wide receiver 3, you can absolutely do that now. So there's a lot of room for experimentation, and obviously in Carolina, Joe Brady and DJ Moore worked together for a year, and DJ Moore, excuse me, I believe had over 1,000 yards receiving. So I think it's a pretty solid pairing. And I don't remember even who the Panthers quarterback was that year. Probably was somebody bad because that was after Cam Newton. They were struggling to find a quarterback, and it was pre-Bryce Young. So, I mean, I think it's a great move. So we'll see what happens there, though.
Of course, and now the Bills aren't locked in at taking a receiver in round one. But some other big trades. We look to the Lions, who had a nice 1-2 punch backfield and no more. David Montgomery's been traded to the Texans for a fourth, a seventh, and Juice Scruggs. Jonathan, what was your reaction to this trade?
I was like, I mean, listen, I was thinking they were going to shop some options, and they did. Obviously, they went. David Montgomery goes to Houston. You break up Sonic and Knuckles. I don't hate it. I mean, fantasy owners love it. If you have like Jahmyr Gibbs in a dynasty league, you're going crazy about this because now you have Jahmyr Gibbs alone in the backfield. But for the Lions' perspective, I in a weird way, I kind of like it because I'm not really fond of paying two running backs like veteran money. So I mean, and listen, Sonic and Knuckles were great together, but it's only going to last for so long. I think David Montgomery, I think he's going to enter his 30s. If he's not in his 30s already, I got to see how old David Montgomery is. But, I mean, listen, David Montgomery is only going to be, like, pretty solid for so long. And when you can go in,
yeah,
he's 28,
he's 28.
So he's
getting there.
Yeah, he's getting there. And running back's prime is only going to last so long. And David Montgomery, I mean, listen, when Jahmyr Gibbs is your running back one, I don't think you're going to complain, especially when Jahmyr Gibbs is going to enter a contract year. I mean, hey, listen. I think if you're Jahmyr Gibbs, you're more. I mean, you're upset David Montgomery's gone, but if you're talking about money here for Jahmyr Gibbs in a couple years, you're pretty happy long term.
But also, what I find interesting first is that David Montgomery was seemingly slowly kind of being schemed out of this offense. He used a lot more in the pass blocking than he really was in the running game. But another big thing that is kind of surprising is the team that traded for him was the Houston Texans, who their backfield is an absolute mess.
Yeah, to say the least.
Like, David Montgomery is a great addition, but also just feels like it's going to get even more confusing. You've got Woody Marks, who's the young rookie out of Southern California, USC. You've got Nick Chubb, who seemingly has lost his touch after his injury, which was a real gruesome injury. And then you've got Joe Mixon, that has somehow just disappeared last season. Like, he was hurt, and then there was just never an update on him in preseason, and he was never talked about again.
Yeah, even in the press conferences, like, nobody ever mentioned him. And he's like, oh, like, no timetable. Next thing you know, like, around, like, the second half of the year, they're like, oh, he's out for the rest of the year. So he screwed fantasy owners, and, I mean, listen, it screwed my excitement for Joe Mixon because I love watching Joe Mixon. Cincinnati Joe Mixon was incredible, obviously. He was the lead back when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl a few years back against the Rams. But, I mean, yeah, dysfunctional to say the least when it comes to this Texans running back room. But, I mean, now you have a decent 1-2 punch there that you can use. I mean, I don't know how well it's going to work. I mean, I like Woody Marks for the future. I thought he was going to be comfortably the one there because when I was hearing rumors about the Texans potentially being interested in Kenneth Walker, I was like, wait a minute. Like, the Texans already have a weird enough running back room. Why add Kenneth Walker and pay him an X amount of money? So they didn't, and then they went for the cheaper option and went at David Montgomery. So if they wanted a 1-2 punch, I like the move. We'll see what happens, though, in an offense where, again, is very dysfunctional with a really weak offensive line.
And I think that it's great, though, that one of the things I talked about a couple of shows ago, I gave one thing every team's got to do. And this, for the Texans, it was you got to commit to C.J. Stroud, and you got to figure out, is it Stroud or is it everybody else? You know it's not the defense because they're playing stellar.
Yeah.
So you've got to figure out if is it Stroud or is it everybody else. So getting David Montgomery certainly helps that. And the Texans, they made another move. We talked about how their O-line struggling. Well, they traded another O-line piece in Titus Howard to the Browns for a 5th-round pick. The Browns, a team that also needs O-line help and is a consideration to take an O-line in the first round. They have 2 picks there. So what are we seeing with this one?
You know, I think they're just trying to start over at offensive line, which, I mean, I guess is weird, especially when C.J. Stroud has a lot of pressure on his back. But I think it's almost like, without a doubt, I mean, we'll get to the mock draft a little later, but I think Houston definitely has to prioritize offensive line in this draft and just build from the ground up. Maybe even if they can afford, I'd have to check their cap space, but maybe even try and take a shot at Tyler Linderbaum, maybe land him at center. I mean, who knows? They really need to try and build the offensive line because C.J. Stroud can only bear such an abysmal offensive line for so long. I think it's almost a guarantee. With the right guy available, I think they're going to land an offensive lineman in the first round for sure.
Well, I love that you bring up the cap space because we're going to start moving into some moves that worked with that. And, of course, it's important to note that the cap has been increased by, I believe it's around $22 million.
On the money, yep.
So that is a lot of money. And some teams that have made some moves. Vikings are planning. Hasn't been done yet. They're waiting to see if they get a trade, but they are planning to release both Aaron Jones and defensive tackle Javon Hargrave. Of course, pending that they can get a trade with these guys, they're going to take it. If not, they're going to release them to free up some space.
Yeah, which I love. And my little brother's a Vikings fan, actually, so we talk about this a little bit. And I was literally saying, like, what they're doing right now is literally perfect. Aaron Jones getting released is literally perfect because it saves a good amount of cap money. I don't know the specifics, but it was a really good amount of cap money. But then, and I asked them to blow the entire D lineup, and look what they absolutely did. I mean, Jonathan Grenard might get traded. Javon Hargrave gets released. So there's a lot of moves that the Vikings are making that are trying to help against the cap. They're trying to work and try and get up to I think right now they're like they had a $46 million under the cap, which is like ridiculous. That's like below the Saints, and the Saints have been under the cap for like 10 years now. So it's like that's how crazily bad the Vikings cap situation is right now. So blowing up the entire defensive line, which I mean, listen, Brian Flores doesn't really know how to manage a defensive line anyways. The defensive line scheme that Brian Flores had, and I think Javon Hargrave reposted something about this on Twitter. It's not really about getting to the quarterback, which is weird enough in itself. But yeah, blowing up the D line, get younger there, and move on.
Well, this is also the perfect year because of how deep this D-line class is.
Very.
We saw it at the Combine especially. But another team doing some moves, they're not releasing, they're restructuring. That was the Cowboys. They've restructured Dak Prescott's contract, Tyler Smith's contract. There's reports saying they might get to CeeDee Lamb, but already they've freed up another $47 million plus the 22 added. That's a brand new $69 million in cap space that they're not going to use because it's Jerry Jones and the Cowboys.
They're not going to use him, but they'll pay like, I don't know, they'll probably pay like Kevontae Turpin for 3 years and make sure he's on their contract. But George Pickens, we'll see.
A franchise tag.
Yeah, I will say the franchise tag was smart. I will say I like the $27.3 million. I think that's a pretty solid number for a guy like George Pickens who was producing top 5 wide receiver numbers last year. And then, hey, if he produces again, maybe I feel like you have to consider paying him long term because the duo between CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, when healthy, because CeeDee Lamb got hurt for a good amount of games, is lethal. And this Cowboys offense is looking really good right now for the present day. But now you got to worry about defense.
Well, a couple more releases, and then we'll get to the final massive trade that I'm really eager to hear your takes on.
Okay.
But before we get to that, we'll start with the Giants releasing Bobby Okereke, freeing up $9 million in cap space. And this is a move that I like. And I like it because the Giants are in a prime spot to start finally really getting into the weeds of this rebuild. And they've got a chance to bring in some veteran players to right the ship. This season is not about the wins. It's about creating a culture that you can take towards winning a Super Bowl in the future. And I think having this cap space allows you to bring in a veteran player. I believe some guys like Von Miller and Bobby Wagner are available in free agency. And again, while they're not going to really get you wins, they're going to help in that locker room that needs fixing. Because Brian Daboll was really not a leader, was really not helping. And again, a linebacker position that the Giants need help with, but it's a good and deep draft class to fix that. And so because of all these factors, I think this is a great move for the Giants.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, looking at the linebackers in free agency, Devin Lloyd sticks out to me. I mean, if they wanted to make a splash on the edge, maybe land a Trey Hendrickson, Jalen Phillips, I don't know. But yeah, I think the Giants, I mean, changing a culture is absolutely right. That's literally on the money because that's why you went and got John Harbaugh. You're trying to set a new culture. You get rid of Brian Daboll and you start fresh. You got to get Jackson Dart, a really good mentor, and that's what John Harbaugh is going to be. And it is a great pairing. I think the issue is how is he going to build that defense? I'm really interested to see how he builds that defense for the long run because obviously last year, I mean, you saw it, Max. I mean, the Giants blew a lot of fourth quarter leads, and look what John Harbaugh is doing in Baltimore, blowing a lot of fourth quarter leads. So that's really the kind of interesting thing I'm looking to figure out when it comes to this Giants team and how they really establish this defense. Obviously, the D-line's there.
The D-line's amazing.
Yeah.
It's the secondary.
Yes.
It really is. And when you look at those games and the blown leads, it's because they couldn't stop a team throwing the pass.
Exactly, yeah.
It was plain and simple that they couldn't stop the pass. I think the Giants' D-line is exactly where it needs to be, and they've just got to keep this core together. And freeing up cap space definitely allows them to be able to do that. Plus the extra, again, $22 million that they get, which is a lot of money. You can lock up a guy with that kind of money, for sure. I just think that this was a great move. The secondary needs work, certainly, and while this kind of does hamper it a little bit, now again, just gives you the roster space, gives you the cap space to go and bring in the guys that you need to fix and right the ship. Because, yeah, Harbaugh is a locker room guy. He's not going to be calling plays on either side of the ball, but he's going to be in that locker room tightening things up because there have been some really bad reports of guys getting away with a lot, especially Abdul Carter. And so finally things are going to get fixed, and we'll move on to the last big thing before our big trade that we get to talk about is Kyler Murray has been released.
Yes.
And now this one has been kind of hinted to. We've had a feeling that he was going to get either traded or released. There's a lot of teams in contention to go sign him, but I think the interesting thing is that the Cardinals are committing to Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback. As somebody that supports the Seahawks, a team in this division, let's start there with your thoughts and then get into Kyler Murray being a free agent.
Okay, all right. Well, first off, I would just like to say, just real quick, thank you, Kyler Murray, for continuously losing to the Seahawks every single year. We're gonna miss you. But with that being said, I actually do like them rolling with Jacoby Brissett this year, and here's why. Remember when Murray got benched for Brissett? You know who turned up later in the year? Michael Wilson. I like him a lot when it comes to the little connection
Got him on
there.
a dynasty team or something.
Yeah, what? No, he's put up good numbers. I mean, listen, the Cardinals are terrible overall. Their offensive line sucks. Like their only notable defensive player is Budda Baker. But when it comes to trying to build an offensive identity for like the short term, like even as a bridge quarterback, and again, who knows if Jacoby Brissett's going to work for even after next year? Probably not. But listen, Jacoby Brissett, you pair him with Marvin Harrison, Michael Wilson, obviously Trey McBride. I think that offense could work. I mean, listen, they might win like maybe 5 games max, but trying to get those consistent numbers and trying to, just trying to establish themselves on the offensive side of the ball because defense, they're cooked.
Well, that is all for everything except for the final thing we get to talk about. And this one is really exciting. Again, I've established that you, Jonathan, are a Seahawks fan.
Yep.
I was certainly surprised, and I cannot wait to hear what you have to say about the Rams making a trade, trading their first-round pick, number 29 in this year's draft, a 5th, a 6th, and a 2027 third for cornerback Trent McDuffie. Jonathan, how you doing after that massive move?
Yeah, all I could say is... Okay. All right. So, yeah, that's basically my response to that because, listen, the Rams, I mean, obviously the odds moved up for the Super Bowl next year in favor of the Rams for this reason because you can look at that team literally top to bottom. Every single aspect of this team was just about perfect except for the secondary. Their secondary was abysmal. You had, Emmanuel Forbes running out there and getting fried. You have, listen, Quentin Lake out there. Cam Curl. I don't think Quentin Lake's that good, if I'm being honest. I think he gets toasted in big moments. Listen, he's pretty solid all year long. But then when it mattered the most, the Seahawks were able to dice him up a little bit. But adding Trent McDuffie to my division is, oh, gosh. Listen, again, I'm not, overly worried. But, it's definitely something that a guy that I don't want the Rams to have. When Chris Shula is probably going to be a head coach after next season. That's going to be a guy that you're going to look at and maybe be like, hey, Chris Shula can work this guy and make him develop maybe into an all-pro again. Who knows? Because he made Emmanuel Forbes look decent. Not great, but you can see what – oh, my goodness. I have no words for this because of how pissed I am about it. Listen, I wasn't expecting the Seahawks to go and get Trent McDuffie. I just wish the Rams weren't the team that got Trent McDuffie because now they're – and guess what? They still have pick 13. They lost pick 29. Oh, yeah. Big whoop. Pick 13 is really what I'm worried about right now because they can go and get Mikael. I know we'll talk about drafting in a little bit, but that secondary
they could do a lot with pick 13.
That secondary looks a lot better now. I will say
they could still get another corner. They could get a wide receiver. They could do a lot. And again, what I love about this trade is that it was pick number 29. It seemed like a common consensus they were going to take a corner there at 29. Or at least with either 13 or 29. One of the two was absolutely going to be a corner, and they could still get another one. But there were a lot of mocks out there, especially from guys like Mel Kiper and Field Yates, two people at ESPN that I love to watch, that were having them the Rams, drafting both Tennessee corners, Jermod McCoy and Colton Hood, which was really interesting, but it was happening. But again, you talk about how highly constructed and well-constructed this team is. They also gave up a fifth, a sixth, and a third. They're not using those picks.
Nope.
Like, let's be real. They don't need those picks. And they were going to probably use 29 on a corner, which they got anyways. So I don't think that I mean, this was the perfect trade for the Rams.
It
and
was.
for the Chiefs, great. You get another first-round pick. That's going to help you massively. You're going to get a fifth, a sixth, and then a third. You could use that first round to get a guy to replace Trent McDuffie, and then you have the fifth, sixth, and a third to fill in holes that you desperately need because this team is not a playoff team anymore.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And now they can go get a corner because the cornerback class is pretty deep heading into the first round. They can go and land a corner with that pick. So I'm interested to see where the Chiefs go with this. I mean, either cap money is starting to get a little more. Now again, they have 2 first-round picks. We'll see if if Jeremiah Love gets picked by the Saints at 8, maybe they go and get Mansour Delane. Or if not, then maybe they go and get another guy. Maybe if Caleb Downs falls to 9 somehow, goodness, no, please, no. But then maybe at 29, maybe if somebody else falls, maybe they like Colton Hood. Maybe they like, I don't think Avion Terrell's going to fall that far.
He could.
He could. I mean, again, the possibility's there. Like, the fact that the possibility is crazy. Their defense could get built up from the ground up because I think right now, you said it, they're rebuilding. So, I mean, we'll see what happens there with the Chiefs, but I as much as I hate to say it, this is a great trade for the Rams.
This is a perfect trade, I believe, for both teams, and I think that this is the perfect time to get into something that you've been avoiding a little bit and that I love so much. Let's get into our mock draft.
Yes.
And quickly, the rules of how we're going to do it. We're going to alternate picks. I'm going to take the first pick because I'm going to give Falco more real picks to talk about as the first one's really obvious. So we're going to go off rip, and the Raiders are going to take Fernando Mendoza. And then from here on out, Falco to be your pick, and we're going to go back and forth alternating and talking about our picks. So, Jonathan, the Jets at 2, the floor is yours.
Yeah, and at number 2 is going to be my draft crush, the best defensive player in the entire draft, in my opinion. It is Arvell Reese. He is versatile. He can tackle. He can drop back into coverage. He can literally do everything. I mean, listen, I hope I'm wrong with this pick because I don't want the Jets to ruin him. But at the end of the day, he is the best defensive player in the draft. And when the quarterback class is very weak, you need a quarterback, but it's not there at 2. So Arvell Reese is probably the perfect option at number 2 for the Jets when you're trying to build a defensive identity after losing Sauce Gardner and Quentin Williams.
I absolutely agree. He can play off the edge. He's intrigued and wants to move to the edge and rush the passer. He's got 100 more snaps. I think it is exactly pass rush snaps that is this year compared to last season in college. But he can also play off the edge as an off-ball linebacker. I'm up at 3 with the Cardinals, and I'm going to stick with an offensive tackle here, and the guy that I still confidently feel is the top, and that is Francis Maui-Noa out of Miami. I just love Maui-Noa. Watching his tape and his film and the plays that he's making and the highlight reels that he has, his agility is on another level. There are plays out there, Jonathan, I don't know if you've seen, where he is the pulling lineman as a tackle.
Yeah.
You know, you commonly say pulling guard because usually it's a guard that's pulling across or pulling to the middle to create a hole. No, there are plays out there where it's Maui-Noa pulling to the middle, basically behind the center, to then help create a hole for the running back to walk through. Absolutely incredible, and that's why I've got him going here at number 3.
Yeah, that's a great pick. If this was like a solo mock draft, I would have done the exact same thing. And I think we're going to be on the same page here with the Tennessee Titans. I'm going David Bailey at 4. He had 14.5 sacks last year with Texas Tech. He was great in the CFP. I'm really excited to see how he develops with Jeffrey Simmons on that D-line. He's going to come off the edge. He's going to be a sack machine from day one. I love this pick for Tennessee. They're going to slowly build that defense up, and I think this is the perfect fit for them.
I love the Texas Tech Red Raiders prospects. I loved that defense. Incredible. Held one of the best offenses in all of the nation in Oregon to only 29 points. If only their offense could actually do something,
right,
they probably could have easily beaten Oregon. I genuinely think that if they had a good offense that was even comparable on a level to that defense, they were going to go compete. I absolutely love all of the Texas Tech Red Raider defensive prospects. And now I get the Giants.
Here we go.
And this is a pick that we talked about, and you had kind of guessed or tried to attempt to guess the pick and the player that I'm going to go with. But I'm going to pick a player that is not at all what you're thinking.
Okay.
I'm not going with an Ohio State Buckeye, and I'll tell you why. One, a lot of people like Carnell Tate here. I do not. I first of all think it's a little early, but also I don't think the Giants are that desperate for a wide receiver. This is a deep wide receiver class,
is,
and
yes.
I love the options in the 3rd to 4th rounds. The Giants could go in the 4th round and take Brennan Thompson or Xavier Thomas out of LSU or Mississippi State and then LSU in the order that I named them, the 2 fastest guys in this combine, and they could go get themselves a true deep ball speedster. And they can do that in the 4th or 5th round. This is a deep. They could get Elijah Surratt, I love, out of Indiana in the 3rd round.
I love him.
He is a guy that I've absolutely loved. Omar Cooper Jr., another Indiana guy. And so because of that, not him. I love this linebacker class. Jacob Rodriguez, Texas Tech. His agility was incredible. He tested in those agility drills better than Sonny Styles. And again, I love the depth. And so because of that, I'm going to go at a position that isn't as deep, and I'm going to go with Spencer Fano, offensive tackle, Utah.
That's if it's not an offensive, if it's not an Ohio State guy, I think that's a great pick. I like Spencer Fano a lot. And the Giants, obviously, they need offensive line help.
They need offensive line help. They've
badly.
got to protect Jackson Dart, and I just love the depth. What we learned from this combine is there is incredible depth at the defensive positions, and because of that, I feel confident and comfortable taking a tackle.
And I think a lot of the offensive tackle depth kind of pans out after the first round. A lot of like the tackles and guards, obviously Ioane out of Penn State, the guard there, will probably get taken. Monroe Freeling. I mean, we'll go down the list as the mock draft continues. But yeah, a lot of that offensive line talent will probably be done after the first round. I don't know who will fall into the second. But yeah, I like this pick a lot. But with that being said, I think this was going to be my consensus anyways, regardless of who you picked. With how bad Jerry Jeudy was last year for the Cleveland Browns, I think you know where I'm going with this. I'm going Carnell Tate out of Ohio State. I think this is the runaway move. I don't think the Giants are going to go Carnell Tate at 5, so I think this is a pretty decent lock at number 6. With Shedeur Sanders, I think you need a wide receiver 1 there for Shedeur. They need offensive line help, but you just pick Fano at 5, so I'm okay with picking Carnell Tate at 6. Again, he's a great route runner. He has good hands. He has everything you want out of a wide receiver. I mean, the speed in the combine was a little concerning for some, but not for me. I don't think the draft stock is going to fall as far as people may or may not think. So I think Carnell Tate is the pick here at 6 for Cleveland.
I agree with you, and again, we talked about it. The offensive line for the first round, it's deep. After the first round, it kind of falls off a bit, and they do have another pick later in the first.
They do.
Plus, whoever it is at quarterback, you've got to have weapons. The fact that Isaiah Bond is your number 2, and that's just, you need some help there. Number 7, the Commanders, another kind of chalky pick, but it's really got to be the man, Ruben Bain Jr., out of Miami. I really don't feel like I need to go into this all that much, Jonathan. Absolutely incredible product and a real game wrecker. Was a big reason why Miami was able to make the national championship game in the first place.
I think this is actually the first one I'm not going to agree with you on.
Really?
I would have went because first off, I think for the Commanders, when you're looking to rebuild a defense, I'm looking best player available here. And listen, obviously edge rusher is a concern for Washington. If it were me, I would have went Caleb Downs here. But again, Ruben Bain is an absolute stud. I like him a lot. Obviously,
even though he's a safety, and it is a little high for a safety. 7 is high.
I think at some point you got to consider when it comes to the Commanders' defense, you got to get the best player available. And the best player available at this point right now is Caleb Downs on a very struggling Commanders defense. I think this is a very good Dan Quinn kind of prospect. Because remember in Seattle when he was a defensive coordinator, how he worked with Earl Thomas and Cam Chancellor. I think he's going to want his guy at safety. But again, I still like the Ruben Bain pick. And with that being said, the number 8 overall pick, I'm going with New Orleans Saints. I'm going Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame. I like it a lot. I think he falls to 8 and jumps Kansas City from getting him. I mean, maybe there might be a little bit of trade drama there if Kansas City wants to trade up a spot and pick Jeremiah Love. I don't think they will, but it's certainly an option. But I think I like New Orleans. I mean, hey, Alvin Kamara is only going to be around for so much longer. And when you have a guy like Jeremiah Love right there, I think this is, again, where you consider best player available on a team, which, crazy enough, exceeded my expectations. And we're 2 games back from winning the NFC South, which is crazy to think about. So I like Jeremiah Love there.
Certainly, and now I've got the Chiefs at 9.
Yep.
No more running back at the table. So, basically, there goes taking offensive player And when you look at what's available down the board, they really need help everywhere on the defense. They could go offensive line here, and that is something that I'm tempted to go with. But I want to have a little bit of fun and play around with some things. So I'm going to have them replacing Trent McDuffie here at 9 and go with Mansour Delane. I know you had kind of talked about that as a potential move at 9. I'm going to go with it, and I'm excited to see how this mock now plays out because corner is now all of a sudden a need for the Chiefs, and they've got a great prospect there in Mansour Delane.
Yeah, absolutely. The best cornerback in this entire draft. So I do like that for sure. And when it comes to the Chiefs, yeah, I think you're going to try and get a little younger. Steve Spagnuolo is going to find his new guy. You're going to save a lot of money. I mean, listen, when you're in a rebuilding team, you're going to want as much cap space as possible. And now that leaves me with Cincinnati. And this one is very tough because I don't necessarily reach on an offensive lineman, even though they desperately do need offensive line. This might be a reach here. This might be one where I might regret it later on. But at number 10, I'm going with Monroe Freeling of Georgia. Because, listen, I mean, Monroe Freeling's been kind of rising up the draft board for me. I don't know if he'll be this high come draft day, so we'll see what happens with his pro day and all of that. But I like Monroe Freeling as a prospect. I mean, the Georgia's kind of had some pretty good offensive linemen come into the NFL as of recent. I mean, Tate Ratledge was a late round draft pick. He's doing well with Detroit. I think Monroe Freeling is going to rise up and surprise some people. I like Monroe Freeling here at 10, and I think Bengals fans will too because as they've been complaining about, Joe Burrow needs some offensive line help, and he needs it fast. So I like it here.
Absolutely, he does. At pick 11, I've got the Dolphins. Positional needs. They need a quarterback. None here. They need a wide receiver, but I've talked about it. There's a lot of great depth. They need a guard. None here. But they need cornerback help desperately. And there is a guy that is ready right now to play. And I understand he didn't play last year, but his 2024 tape is genuinely that good. I'm going with Tennessee's Jermod McCoy here for the Dolphins at pick 11. Again, great 2024. He did not play at all in 2025, but he was healthy and able to. They chose not to have him play. That is the reports coming out, is that he could have come back and played the last couple of games. I believe he is still going to test at his pro day, so bearing what he does there could depend on where he goes in the future. But I think Jermod McCoy is a great pick here.
Pick 12. If I'm Jerry Jones, I am like ecstatic right now because Sonny Styles just fell to you at 12. Because when you just get rid of Logan Wilson, you need a new linebacker. You're looking for a new leader, obviously. I mean, listen, Logan Wilson was there for like half a season, so he's not like not necessarily like a core guy there to say the least. I mean, I think he was like the captain of the Bengals defense, and he got traded to Dallas trying to find a new defensive identity. Obviously, landing Quinnen Williams last year from the Jets, and I think Sonny Styles on that Cowboys defense, he screams Dallas Cowboy. So if you're Jerry Jones, you absolutely want this guy, and he is not only the best player available, he fits a position of need, and if you're that Cowboys team, excuse me, voice crack there, you need and you want to fill that position for the long term, a guy who's probably going to be a future Pro Bowl or almost guaranteed All-Pro even for sure. Sonny Styles is that dude. He is that good. I like this pick a lot.
That is, I completely agree with you. That is the pick. And the fact that Sonny Styles has the chance to fall that far, absolutely incredible. And now we've got the Rams here at pick 13.
I'm interested what you do with this.
I'm going to stick to my guns and stick to what I truly believe is fact. And I'm going to go with the best player available because that is what I think the Rams should do. And when you look at this roster, that is rarely where they're at, but it just so happens that the best player available helps them with their secondary, which was the worst part of their game. I'm going with Caleb Downs here. Really, really bold of me, I believe, but I'm going to go with Caleb Downs here, and I can tell that you are very surprised.
No, I'm surprised he fell this far. I completely blanked on him. And listen, I wasn't going to pick him at what was it, 12 with Dallas. I wasn't going to do that. Because, I mean, listen, the Cowboys need a lot of needs. And you were saying earlier when I was disagreeing with you on the Commanders pick that, okay, like, listen, safety isn't necessarily the most valuable position, but he is one of the best players in the entire draft. I would hate this as a Seahawks fan.
This would
but
be your worst
yeah,
nightmare for
but-
them to get Trent McDuffie and then Caleb Downs to help
yeah.
this secondary where they really don't have guys. You got Cam Curl and Cameron Kitchens are your safeties right now. Trent McDuffie in the depth chart replaces Kobe Durant.
Yep.
And so, what an incredible secondary boost. And again, the Rams had the best offense.
Yep.
So you don't necessarily are rushing to help that. And when you look at the defense, they're 19th in the league, allowing 216 passing yards per game. That was the weakest aspect of their game. They were 12th in the league with rushing yards per game. So really, hey, help the secondary. Take the best player available, but also the best secondary player available.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness, please don't let this happen. Please, NFL draft gods. I appreciate the Super Bowl, but I have one more request. Don't let the Rams get Caleb Downs, please. But yeah, anyways, I mean, listen, that's the best pick available. But now the Ravens, I'm interested in this pick. I'm interested not only for I'm torn between two people, and I'm going to tell you who they are in a second. But what the Ravens do on draft day, my eyebrows will be up. I am very intrigued with what they do with this pick because they can go defensive line. It's been a notable hole for a little while. I mean, obviously you paid Travis Jones at nose tackle long term, but is that it? Like, really? I mean, and Kyle Van Noy on the edge is getting older. I mean, maybe you look Peter Woods here, or maybe Keldrick Falk. But for me, when you have Lamar Jackson, you have him for so long, and I'm not going receiver. I'm not going Mekhi Lemon. I'm not going Mekhi Lemon here. I'm not.
Now I'm really excited. Oh, where are you going?
So there was a certain right guard that the Ravens disliked a lot. His name is Daniel Faalele. I had to deal with Anthony Bradford all year. He's worse than Anthony Bradford. This guy is terrible. So with that being said, why not go with the best true guard in this entire draft? I'm going to butcher his name. I'm going to go with Ioane. I'm going to, again, if you want to.
Vega Ioane.
Yeah.
I have it written down. I have not memorized the actual pronunciation, but he did give a full pronunciation at the Combine. I have it written down, not with me right now, his first name, but his nickname is Vega Ioane, the last name.
Vega Ioane.
Penn State guard. Wow.
Okay. And listen, I mean, obviously, I'm not looking at Rashad Bateman as a wide receiver, too. So, listen, if they go Mekhi Lemon here, I wouldn't be too surprised at all. I just think when you need offensive line help, again, you have a generational quarterback in Lamar Jackson. You got to help him in any way possible. And again, free agent wide receivers are still available. If they wanted to go and land an A.J. Brown, if they wanted to, let's see what happens with Stephon Diggs. But if they want to go pick up Stephon Diggs, they could do that in a few months from now. Again, we'll see what happens there. But I like this for right now. Again, things could change come draft day. But for the time being, Ioane's the perfect pick.
I think there's no wrong that they could really do. Of course,
yeah, exactly.
You want to help with the wide receivers, but then continue with what I've been preaching. It's a deep wide receiver
class. And then what do
you
do? Because now you're losing Tyler Linderbaum. Because,
you got to help on the interior.
Yeah, you need help in the interior. And why not get a guy? You're going to lock him in for 4 years. You're going to pair him alongside.
At least you could still take that.
At least 4 years. Yeah, again, at least 4 years, and have him sitting in front of Lamar Jackson and help him block Lamar Jackson. I'm all for this pick if I'm Baltimore, and I would really like to watch some tape on this guy. More tape on this guy. With that being said,
I'm up at 15 with the Bucs, and this was a pick that I had seen Mel Kiper do, and I thought he was absolutely insane. And then I did a little bit more digging, and then the Combine happened.
See, to me, I think this is a layup. I'm interested to see where you go with this.
I felt that there was a position they had to take, and it was linebacker. But Mel Kiper went with a different direction, and now after doing some research and finding that this position is actually a big need for this team in the Bucs, I'm going with Kenyon Sadiq, tight end, Oregon. I thought at first this was insane because the Bucs, they need a linebacker. I was mocking all last year Jahad Campbell, who was the linebacker out of Alabama, to the Bucs at, I think it was like 27 or something. Then all of a sudden, I started thinking, come draft day, he's not going to fall that far. Then he did, and they went with Ibuka. And now this season, the secondary struggled, and the season ends with basically the common consensus out of Tampa being they need a linebacker. But again, this is a deep linebacker class. And when you see the fact that Cade Otton is no longer there anymore, now he's a free agent and they could re-sign him, but he's not necessarily there. Tight end is up for grabs. And when you've got an absolute freak of nature, we're talking 4.39 at the Combine, 40-yard time. That is the fastest since 2003 of any tight end. No tight end has been under 4.4. And the rest of his numbers, his ability to block. I went and watched this tape because I went in thinking, oh, this is a receiving tight end, but tight ends for me have to block. Then I went and watched the tape. He's pancaking edge rushers. He's playing in the Big Ten, playing against true competition, and he's a tight end pancaking edge rushers. Absolutely freak of nature, Kenyon Sadiq.
That's what I meant when I said layup pick. I have been high on Kenyon Sadiq ever since I've been hearing more about him and watching tape as well. This guy is versatile. He is absolutely incredible. And then with Cade Otton testing free agency out, at this point I don't think you should pay Cade Otton because this guy's out of his mind. I am very high on Kenyon Sadiq. I am very excited to see. I think it's a matter of when, not if he goes to the Bucs at 15 and see how he works out with Baker Mayfield.
All
Now
right.
that said, number
Jets
16,
and Mekhi Lemon's on the board.
Mekhi Lemon's on the board. Because I was gonna say this one's a bit more difficult because normally my mock drafts I've had Mekhi Lemon going a little earlier. A lot of my mocks I've had him going to the Rams because obviously Devontae Adams getting a little older. I think the Rams only have him on a 2-year deal, so looking long term, they might have wanted to go receiver there, especially after confirming that secondary, adding to that secondary, with Trent McDuffie. But now Mekhi Lemon's here. And I think it's a safe option. I think he's the best player for the Jets available right now. And I'm going to go with that because you need somebody. I mean, who knows how long Garrett Wilson's going to be there. The offense already is dysfunctional. Ty Simpson's a reach at this point. So I'm going to go with Mekhi Lemon here, wide receiver, and you lock him down for 4 years or again, even more. I'm a big fan of Mekhi Lemon. I think he's going to do well. I think he could do well with the Jets given the right system.
I've got the Lions, and there's a lot that they need help with. They need corners help, but I just feel like it's a little early, and this is a nice deep corner. They need help on the O-line for sure, but this just feels a little too high for Caden Proctor and Caleb Lomu. Proctor had a little bit of a shaky combine. Lomu looked good, but I just feel like it's a little early. And so because of that, I'm going to go with an edge rusher that I loved coming out of the combine. When we talk about the drill portion especially, there was a guy out of Auburn that crushed that run the hoop drill, which is basically simulating an edge rusher going around the outside of the offensive line and getting to the quarterback. Keldrick Falk.
Yep.
Absolutely incredible. He looked so smooth and fluid running that drill. Him and David Bailey just crushed it out of the park. And so I think him, plus now you've got Aiden Hutchinson on the opposite side. Oh, I would not want to face off against that Lions D-line now.
Yeah, Dan Campbell has his mouth watering for that. And weird enough, like 30 seconds ago, I was actually going to disagree with you. I thought they should go O-line here. So I think, again, regardless, you talked about the Ravens earlier. They're in a really good spot. I think the Lions are in a pretty good spot with their draft selection because they could obviously bolster the offensive line, but they can also go defense. You can pair another edge rusher alongside Aiden Hutchinson and work on the defense a little bit more and try and build back in a very tough NFC North. And speaking of NFC North, the Minnesota Vikings, I think this is a layup. I am huge on this guy, Max. You know it. It's the safety. Harrison Smith's getting a little older. I think I'm not sure if he's playing next season. He might not. But regardless, this is the pick. Whether or not Harrison Smith is a Viking come next season, it is Dylan Thieneman. This guy, not only is he an excellent safety, he checks all the boxes as a safety. This guy is athletic. This guy is ridiculous. I cannot wait to see him ball out wherever he goes. I think the perfect fit, though, is with Brian Flores and that Minnesota Vikings defense. My brother will be very excited because he's happy. He wants him too. So I'm going to agree with him here. Dylan Thieneman,
You were hyping him up. I didn't know. I wasn't all too big on him, and then he ran a 4.35, and I was like, okay, wait, maybe I'm starting to see it a little bit because you don't see that speed all too much. You see the agility, you see the athleticism, but not necessarily the speed. And then he goes and runs a 4.35. Now I've got the Panthers. And I'm looking here at PFF because I'm just curious. They have an analysis where they look across all of the drafts that happen on PFF.
Right.
And they give you the top 6 most commonly drafted guys. And number 1, I see is Caden McDonald. And I've looked at this defensive interior spot. But I'm going to be honest, I didn't like how he looked at the combine. I think he's a pure plug, as in he's just going to sit there and basically stop the whole running game against. But I think that when you're the Panthers, I think they need more help with their secondary, not necessarily secondary, but with their pass defense than their run defense. But you can also just simply get a guy that helps with both. And I'm going to go with linebacker out of Georgia, C.J. Allen. I'm going to go with C.J. Allen here. Panthers taking a linebacker, bolstering that defense. And again, this is a guy that also has great athleticism. He's going to help you in the pass. He can also help you in the run. He can also be a pass rusher up the middle, which is something that you can scheme. We're starting to see a lot of NFL teams doing that. But I think that the Panthers really got to look towards the secondary, look towards their pass defense more than their anything else. And so that's why I'm going with Allen.
Yeah, I am. I like that pick a lot, and I was actually questioning whether or not you can pick a guy like Peter Woods out of Clemson and bolster up that defensive line a little bit. But I like your logic there, so I'm perfectly okay with that. Again, Georgia, obviously, no pun intended, they get dogs. They produce a lot of dogs.
They produce dogs there.
They produce dogs, and with that being said, when it comes to this Packers team, they're interesting. Obviously,
no, it's not the Packers. It's the Cowboys.
Oh, that's right.
They
is
traded
the
the pick.
It is the Cowboys. You're absolutely
it's the Cowboys.
right. My apologies. Okay. Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys. That's right. They have 2 first round.
It's the Cowboys because they traded for Micah Parsons.
The Micah Parsons trade. And you know what? I'm going to double down on the defense. You got Sonny Styles earlier. You already picked one Tennessee corner earlier on in this draft. I'm going to go with the other one. I'm going with Colton Hood. This guy is a stud. I am huge on this guy. I mean, he already had a breakout year last year with Tennessee. He has been absolutely ridiculous for them. He's one of the best corners in this draft. And regardless of who they want, regardless of which corner you want, whether it's him, Avion Terrell, you're in a good spot here if you're Dallas. And I think Colton Hood's a perfect pick.
An incredible pick. Feels a little early for me, but you know, he stepped up in Jermod McCoy's absence when McCoy got hurt, and he played really well. He looked solid at the combine, and I like it. I think it's a good pick. Now I've got the Steelers at 21, and I'm going to stick to my guns. And I'm going to stick with the fact that the Steelers need something more than anything. They need a quarterback. But not here. This is way too early to be taking a quarterback. And with the potential that is there now, this isn't the best quarterback class, but there's some guys with potential should you build them up. And I just genuinely think they need wide receiver. You need a guy to throw the ball to before you get the guy to throw the ball. Like, you just have somebody to need to throw to. And Jordan Tyson, a prospect that is there, you've talked highly about him. You love him. And I know that there's some injury concerns, but man, when that guy's healthy, he's so good. I'm going with Jordan Tyson here at 21.
And I've said this before the show even, Max, when Jordan Tyson's healthy, he has the potential to be the best wide receiver in this entire draft class. I am way higher on him than I am of Denzel Boston, and somebody I am very low on in comparison to a lot of the media. But with that being said, I mean, the Chargers, this is interesting because, I mean, listen, obviously you lost Rashawn Slater to injury last year. Obviously the offensive line wasn't going to look that good, and I think even with Rashawn Slater, the offensive line is still not good. So the Chargers, you absolutely need to go offensive lineman here. We have not picked Caden Proctor yet, have we?
Caden Proctor's still on the board. Caleb Lomu's still on the board.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, Caleb Lomu.
You could go guard with Emmanuel Pregnon.
Nope.
You're going with Caleb Lomu.
I'm going with Caleb Lomu. I like him a lot. Again, a lot of these tackles are starting to rise up the boards a little bit.
Especially after their combine performances. Lomu, Fano, the Utah guys tested real well at the combine. They did their drills incredibly well. I agree with you. And now I've got the Eagles. And this is a really strange spot for the Eagles because there's a multitude of different ways, but I think that there's one specific spot I've got to go, and that's the edge rusher position. I'm going to go with Texas A&M's Cassius Howell. And I find it interesting that Akeem Mesidor is actually ranked on PFF higher than Cassius Howell. I love PFF, by the way. Great website, and I love and enjoy using it. And I see he's ranked higher, but I don't think Akeem Mesidor is higher. I don't think Akeem Mesidor is a round one guy. I've seen some mocks with him go in the first round, but I don't know if he's a round one guy. But I believe in Cassius Howell, and so I've gone with him.
Yeah, I like Cassius Howell a lot. When it comes to the Browns, this is the Browns right now.
Yep,
right. Yeah,
this is the Browns. They traded with Jacksonville.
It is the Browns. Yes, traded with Jacksonville.
This was last year's pick in which Jacksonville moved up to get Travis Hunter, and the Browns moved back.
Which that was a really bad trade for the Jaguars, in my opinion.
Well, time will tell.
Time will
but they did go and make the playoffs with him hurt.
Yes. I'm a big Travis Hunter guy. I am. I think just for the Browns, that you get, not only you get Mason Graham, you're getting another first-round pick here, and I'm very intrigued with what they do with this pick. Cause
It's not going to be defense.
it's
We
not.
know that for sure. Their offense needs help, and so.
But do they double down on offense? Because again, earlier I had them picking Carnell Tate. You
Well,
know what?
You know, Caden Proctor's still there. Emmanuel Pregnant's still there. They could go O-line.
I was thinking, yeah, I was thinking a receiver. I know I was thinking doubling down a receiver, but I think that's a little risky, especially when you have a couple of holes at offensive line. So I am going to agree. I'm going to go with Caden Proctor. And the receiver I was thinking to go in was Omar Cooper Jr. I'm very high on him, but I am going to roll with Caden Proctor. I mean, again, we'll see if Omar Cooper gets picked in this first round here. But for right now, Caden Proctor to the Browns makes a lot of sense. And Shore Sanders needs some help. And you got two pieces. You got a wide receiver. You got an offensive lineman. I like this draft for the Browns. The Browns have been drafting pretty well as of recent. It's just a matter of putting all the pieces together and moving on.
I've got the Bears, and I've talked about how there's something that they need to fix, and that is that run defense. They need to fix that run defense. There's a guy that I mentioned that is an absolute plug when it comes to stopping the run, especially on the inside. So I'm going to go with right here defensive tackle out of Ohio State, Caden McDonald, an absolute beast of a player, 6'3", 326, a mammoth guy. And when you look at his tape, you can't run up the middle against Ohio State, and he's the reason why. He's like, the comparison is like to Vita Vea. You can't run up the middle on Vita Vea when he's sitting there because he's just going to clothesline you and put you to sleep, basically. And Caden McDonald, that's his upside, I believe. I'm not saying that he's like that. I'm saying that's what he could become if he plays to his true potential, is a guy like Vita Vea, shutting down the run game up the middle.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And now, speaking of a team that just made a pretty solid trade, I'm going with it's the Buffalo Bills here. And obviously, a lot of the mocks early on were going, okay, hey, you need a wide receiver now. But now you have a wide receiver one. Do you go wide receiver again? In my opinion, absolutely not. I think you're okay rolling with the DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir, and Keon Coleman wide receiver trio. And obviously, you have Dalton Kincaid there as well. So with that, is TJ Parker available here?
TJ Parker's still available.
Yeah, I like TJ Parker off the edge. Pair him with a guy like Greg Rousseau.
All right.
I don't hate the defense there. I mean, again, I could see them maybe trading back here. Because, again, I'm not too crazy about adding another edge rusher, but at the end of the day, I'm not. What are your thoughts on the Bills here, in your opinion?
I agree. I think that it's going to be either TJ Parker. It's going to be a Clemson guy, I feel like. It's either going to be TJ Parker, Peter Woods, or Avion Terrell. It's going to be one of those three, and I like the move. I'm going to, just because I like it time, speed this up a little bit here as we're slowly running out of time. We got about 6 minutes left in the show. We've got 49ers here. I'm going with the wide receiver, and I'm going with Denzel Boston out of Washington.
Yes,
I love him.
please.
And the Niners need help at the wide receiver position because Juwan Jennings, what's going on? Brandon Ayuk, what's going on? And the fact that it's just an absolute disaster. Ricky Pearsall's your best guy, but he's been hurt basically all the year. So Denzel Boston's the pick for me.
Yeah, and now with the Texans, I mean, listen, obviously the defense has been one of the best in football, but in a weird way, I like Blake Miller out of Clemson. Because here's the thing. If he's a right tackle, and obviously, you re-sign Trent Brown, I think you can move Blake Miller a little bit around. I think he's very versatile when it comes to this Houston Texans team. And again, it is back-to-back offensive tackles here. But I think long-term, I think the Texans, again, you got to work on the offensive line. I think that's where it's going to be here.
And I think that now with the Chiefs at 29, the Kansas City Chiefs at 29, they need offensive line help, and I think that they're going to make sure that they get that offensive line help before it's too late. I'm going with Emmanuel Pregnon, offensive guard, Oregon.
I like that.
I liked how he tested at the Combine. He looked really good, really stout, really smooth and fluid, and because of which, and the fact that this Chiefs team needs help at guard, going with Emmanuel Pregnon.
And now number 30, I mean, for the Broncos here, I'm going with my guy Omar Cooper Jr.
Ooh.
I like adding an extra receiver to Bo Nix's arsenal. I think the sky is the limit for a guy like Omar Cooper because, listen, I mean, these Indiana guys with Fernando Mendoza have been good. We'll see if it can translate to the NFL. Time will tell. But I like this spot with Sean Payton. No longer calling plays now, but I think regardless, I think this Broncos offense is going to be a lot better than last year. And I mean, again, we'll see what happens with free agency and Kenneth Walker. But I think Omar Cooper at the wide receiver position, I'm a big fan of it at 30.
I've got the Patriots at 31, and well, we both watched that Super Bowl.
They did. Yep, we did.
What was the absolute pitfall and disaster of that Patriots team? It was the offensive line.
Yeah.
The fact that the Seahawks nearly set a new Super Bowl record for sacks in a Super Bowl is enough to tell you that they need help at offensive line. And this is actually starting to run a little thin, but there's still a guy that I really like, and it's Arizona State's Max Iannaccio. He is a really good prospect, and I'd heard a lot of reports about him during the Senior Day festivities. Senior Bowl festivities. And even before that, a lot of talk about him and how he's a good prospect, and now I'm starting to see it. Now that I've had the time to watch his tape and see him play, I really love Iannaccio.
I like that pick, and that leaves it down to me at 32. I can't believe I could say this, but the reigning Super Bowl champions. And not only am I happy with how this mock draft has gone, Raymond, this has been awesome for the past hour, but at 32, Avion Terrell has fallen in the lap of Mike Macdonald. Let's go. If this is exactly how the draft goes, I am in. Actually, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. Never mind. Caleb Downs cannot go to the Rams. But besides that, if this mock draft pans out exactly how it is, then I am a happy man, especially with Denzel Boston of San Francisco, because, again, that's a topic for another day, but I'm not very high on him. But Avion Terrell is my draft crush when it comes to the secondary and for the Seahawks. Because, I mean, listen, logically, okay, you're looking, okay, with Nicky Memori, you have Brandon Sisk down at South Carolina. For me, when it comes to comparison of those two, I like Avion Terrell a little more. I think he does everything a little bit better than Brandon Sisk. And if he falls to 32, Cisse, yeah, that's right. My apologies. But if he falls to 32, this is a match made in heaven. I think you can guarantee Rick Woolen is out the door, and I will not complain. Thank him for everything. But if I got Avion Terrell at 32, I am jumping for joy.
Thank you, Jonathan, for taking the time to join us, and I want to wrap this by also making it clear that Falco is a massive Seahawks fan.
I got all my Seahawks drip on right now.
He is in a Seahawks hat and a sweatshirt right now, and so I'm incredibly happy that I was able to get you that pick. Incredible insight, as always, Mr. Falcon. So that'll be a wrap, a quick run-through. The Raiders took Mendoza, then Arvo Reese, Maui Noah, David Bailey, Fano, Carnell Tate at 6, at 7, Ruben Bain at 8, Jeremiah Love at 9, Mansour Delane, 10, Monroe Freeling, 11, Jermod McCoy, then Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs falling out of our top 10 somehow. Vega Ioane, Kenyon Sadiq, Makai Lemon, Keldrick Falk, Dylan Theineman, your favorite, C.J. Allen, Colton Hood, Jordan Tyson, Caleb Lomu, Cassius Allo, Caden Proctor, Caden McDonald. The Caden's going back-to-back. Yep. T.J. Parker, Denzel Boston, Blake Miller, Emmanuel Pregnon, Omar Cooper Jr., Max Iannaccio, and then Avion Terrell to finish it out. And that will be all she wrote for this episode of Between the 20s. Again, Falco, thank you for coming on. If you did enjoy, you can check out on YouTube. This will be posted on my YouTube, Max's Mike on YouTube and Instagram. Until next week, have a great Sunday and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
And go Hawks.